Shalom, giving all praises to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, the double honors to the apostles, elders of Great Millstone. May Yahweh Bashim Yahushai's peace be bestowed unto you, hopefully elect. My brother Yowakal from Great Millstone, Orlando. I just got this video here by John Williams. This is John Williams' YouTube handle. Just one of many of the, like the scriptures go into, the keepers of the house, roughly paraphrasing. Just one of many of these economists that can pretty much paint a picture when it comes to prophecy, which again, the prophets at the end of the day are the only ones that are able to connect the dots. So, of course, we use certain of these guys and the information that they bring out to filter it through the scriptures, because the scriptures do go into the collapse of this economy. But with that being said, again, I got this video here. I want to run through it because being that we're in the midst of a government shutdown, a lot of people may think of this as a automatic economy collapse, but that's not necessarily the case. Nevertheless, we are seeing the events leading up to this economy falling. All right. And when it comes to a government shutdown, this is more fuel to the fire. All right. So without further ado, of course, fair use, copyright disclaimer. I'm not making any type of monetary gain off of this video. This is just for informational purposes. So without further ado, I'm going to play this video because, again, just going into, again, he's painting the picture when it comes to what a government shutdown, what it is. There's different types of government shuts down. So, he pretty much breaks it down in this video. So, without further ado, I'm going to play this video.
Government has officially shut down, and here's what that really means.
The U.S. government is now officially shut down.
And right now, it's day 4 of the government shutdown with no immediate end in sight.
Congress failed to pass a budget, and so funding has literally run out.
The United States government has officially entered a shutdown for the first time in 6 years after the Democrats blocked a Republican stopgap funding package and the Senate failed to pass a funding bill before the midnight deadline.
Overnight, hundreds of thousands of workers stopped getting paid.
What generally happens is that government workers who are deemed non-essential are put on temporary unpaid leave and normally paid later.
Agencies closed their offices, and entire parts of the economy are now on pause. If this shutdown drags on for 29 days, it will be the second largest shutdown in American history, just behind the record-breaking 35-day shutdown in 2018 and 2019.
Have border security will shut down the government.
As the partial government shutdown enters week 3, the president's reiterating he wants more than $5 billion for a wall.
If we got $5 billion, we could do a tremendous chunk of wall.
We're not doing a wall.
That one.
So real quick, and slacking for the interjection, because there is a lot of meat to pick. So dealing with a government shutdown, basically, in not so many words, federal workers don't get paid. And as you just seen the clip where Trump is going into, and this is what's being said. All right, a strategic move by Trump. Because with the government shutdown, national parks being closed and things of that nature. And what this could entail is, because again, Trump wants he wants federal spending. Here it is. We're America's about to be dragged into war. All right. So in order to cut certain budgets, because with the government shutdown, government basically doesn't have the funds because you have a lot of government. The government is basically paying for a lot of things. So with the government shutdown, Trump can use those funds to, elsewhere, for his use, basically, and that makes sense to me. All right. But nevertheless, this is what a government shutdown consists of. And Also, it has me thinking because with the government shutdown, again, federal workers don't get paid. All right, government programs such as SNAP, WIC, things of that nature, many other things, Medicare, Medicaid, and things of that nature. But it's going to be rather interesting to see how this plays out because with the government shutdown, and just in time with Trump deploying the National Guard troops and things of that nature to different places, it's going to be rather interesting to see how that plays out because, again, the troops, they won't be getting paid. You know, it's already being said that certain airports are being shut down, right? You know, due to this whole fiasco. So it's going to be rather interesting to see how this plays out.
Alone cost the U.S. economy $11 billion, and about $3 billion of that was permanent damage.
Cost of the federal government shutdown is $11 billion. There is a $3 billion permanent hit to economic activity that will not be recouped.
Money the U.S. has never recovered. Every single week this continues, the U.S. loses between $7 and $15 billion. That's not some abstract number. That's like wiping out a major budget of a top American city every 7 days. And this isn't happening in a vacuum. The job market is already showing cracks. Consumer debt is already higher than ever, and the dollar has already lost about 10% of its value so far this year.
In the past 6 months, the US dollar has fallen by over 10% when compared with a basket of other currencies from the US's biggest trading partners.
If confidence in America's ability to govern itself slips further, the fallout could hit everything, from mortgages to small businesses to the strength of the dollar itself. So in this video, we're going to break down this shutdown week by week. What actually happens on day 7, day 14, day 21, and how fast this political standoff can impact our everyday lives. Here's what happens in the first week of the government shutdown. On day 1, 800,000 federal workers are told to either work from home or work without pay. That includes everyone from agency clerks to scientists, even TSA agents at the airport. The government calls them essential workers, but that doesn't mean they're getting paid. Programs that millions of families rely on are feeling the strain.
So, real quick, dealing with, again, these federal workers, because basically they won't get paid, all right? And what that can entail, again, and it's already happening. This is why, again, airports are being shut down, all right? And you know, Lord, one of this is going to be a ripple effect. You know, it's already being said. A lot of these federal workers, again, because they're not getting paid, you know, because with the government shutdown, they can come to some type of a deal within 24 hours. It could be weeks, days, you know, it could be whatever. And with that being said, that's when these federal workers will get paid. But nevertheless, these federal workers, they're still required to show up to work without getting paid. So it's already being said that a lot of these federal workers, they're calling out sick, you know, quote unquote. All right, you know, they just excuses not to go to work because they're not getting paid. So, like I said, this can be a real cascade effect. Again, it's not a full blown economy collapse, but you know, this is a bandage on an incurable wound. All right, like the scriptures say, you know, there's no balm for her wound. All right, so this could lead to a lot of major things. Like I said, more fuel to the fire.
The WIC program, which provides food to mothers and children, can start running out of food in the very first week if the states don't step in.
For now, we have resources to operate WIC for 1 to 2 weeks. But after the first week or so, we are very concerned that the limited federal resources that have been appropriated may start to be exhausted. And so then it will be up to states to see if they can add state dollars to the program to keep us operating.
And small business loans from the SBA are suddenly frozen, which means entrepreneurs waiting on capital are left out to dry. Even if you're not directly tied to the government, the effects creep in fast. Federal permits and approvals stop moving. That means construction projects, environmental approvals, and even some housing transactions hit delays. And here's something a lot of people don't realize. During a shutdown, the government stops releasing key data. No jobs report, no inflation data, no updates from the Census Bureau. The entire financial system is essentially flying blind, which makes markets more volatile and raises the risk of bad policy decisions. So by the end of week 1, the economy is not collapsing, but gears in the economy are grinding slower. Paychecks are frozen, families are worried, and the scoreboards we rely on to track the economy suddenly go dark. By the second week of the shutdown, the impact moves beyond Washington and into everyday America. The Small Business Administration suddenly starts to freeze new loans. That means if you're about to expand your shop, buy equipment, or get working capital, everything is now on hold. And for many small businesses, the delay in funding could mean permanently closing their doors. Government contractors, which could mean Big defense firms to small independent cleaning companies hired by federal buildings also start to slow down or shut down operations. When the federal checks stop, so do theirs. And that's when you see layoffs ripple into local economies. Think about towns near military bases or towns around Washington, D.C. Restaurants, daycares, dry cleaners, all of them depend on steady paychecks from government workers and contractors. This is also the point where consumer spending starts to dip. Families missing paychecks, they cut back on groceries, gas, and everyday purchases. The average American doesn't have much of a cushion. Most households can't handle a few weeks without income. So local businesses start to notice fewer customers walking in. And remember, with official data releases paused, nobody has a clear picture of how bad it's getting in real time. Policymakers, business owners, and investors are making decisions in the dark. That uncertainty alone can slow down investments and make people a little bit more cautious. So by the end of week 2, it's not just federal workers that are feeling the stress. It's the shop owner waiting on a loan, the contractor laying off staff, and the local restaurant wondering why sales suddenly fell. By the 3rd week of the shutdown, you start to see signs in the housing market. Here's the problem. Most of the housing market is supported by mortgages that are then supported by the federal government. FHA, VA, USDA loans, which make up a very large chunk of first-time home buyers. They all get delayed or slow down to a crawl. That means families that were set to close on their home this month, that may no longer be possible. They may wait weeks if the seller will grant an extension, and if not, the sale could be canceled. Then there's the IRS. Lenders often need IRS transcripts to verify someone's income, especially if they're self-employed. During a shutdown, that process stalls. So if you're a freelancer or a small business owner trying to buy a home, you could be stuck in limbo. And the biggest choke point, flood insurance. The National Flood Insurance Program cannot issue a new policy in the middle of a shutdown. Without that insurance, banks will not issue a loan inside of a flood zone. During the 2010 shutdown, this single issue caused more than 1,000 transactions to die every single day. So even if the broader economy doesn't crash in week 3 or week 4, thousands of individual families and sellers are suddenly frozen. You can imagine how stressful that is. You packed up, you schedule your movers, you got kids, getting ready to start a new school district, and then suddenly the deal dies because Washington can't agree on a budget. That's when the government shutdown stops being an abstract headline and starts hitting people right at home, literally. When the economy is this unpredictable, shutdowns, freezing mortgages, jobs in line, and markets moving by the minute, you need a way to see what's actually happening in real time. That's exactly where StreamX comes in. Right now, gold is at an all-time high, and demand from central banks is breaking records. But the way people own and trade gold hasn't really changed in decades. Until now. Think about how Netflix disrupted Blockbuster. Same product, but delivered in a faster, smarter, and user-friendly way. Traditional gold ETFs have real weaknesses. Many investors don't trust that they're fully backed. They charge management fees, and in a lot of countries they're not even accessible. That's where StreamX, ticker symbol STEX on the NASDAQ, comes in. With billionaire mining tycoon Frank Goistra and Sean Rosen as strategic advisors, StreamX is aiming to revolutionize commodity ownership. Their model, fully backed, vaulted, audited, verified, and even yield-earning gold products. In other words, investors could finally get paid to own gold. They've secured up to $1.1 billion in funding from Cantor Fitzgerald, and the platform was built by the same engineers behind fintech infrastructure for JP Morgan Chase, Capital One, and Bank of America. StreamX's first product, a yield-bearing gold token, is launching soon, built on Solana and Coinbase's Base blockchain, tapping into the massive tokenization wave that Wall Street is racing to adopt. Mr. Goistra owns 17 million shares valued at north of 90 million, and significant insider ownership by the two co-founders. StreamX is positioning itself to be the next big disruptor in the gold and commodity space. For details, check the link in the description. And as always, make sure you do your own research. One of the most dangerous effects of a shutdown is what it does to jobs, both directly and indirectly. On day one, hundreds of thousands of federal jobs are furloughed. Some are told to stay home without pay. Others are told to keep working with no paycheck until the government reopens. For families living paycheck to paycheck, even a 2-week gap means bills go unpaid. Credit cards maxed out, and even rent becomes a problem. But it does not stop with government workers. Contractors, the private companies that depend on government contracts, they start feeling squeezed too. When their payments get delayed, layoffs follow. That ripples outward towards the private sector. Construction projects stall, service jobs in small towns slow down, and unemployment claims start to creep up. And here's where it gets even trickier. During a shutdown, the government stops releasing official economic data. That includes the monthly job report, the single most important bit of information for the Federal Reserve and for Wall Street. So just as the job market is weakening, policymakers are flying blind. Business owners, they don't know how bad it is. And the Fed doesn't have reliable numbers, and investors are left guessing. Think about that for a second. If the job market suddenly starts to take a hit in week 3 or week 4, we might not actually see it until the damage is done. And if the economy is already stretched by high debt and slowing growth.
Since you started watching the NewsHour tonight, our nation's debt has grown by more than $140 million. Its total sum is $37 trillion.
That uncertainty alone is enough to push companies into halting further hiring or layoffs. So when people talk about a government shutdown being a political stunt, it's easy to forget real people's jobs and their livelihoods. They're at the front lines. Now let's zoom out, because this shutdown doesn't just affect people's paychecks and housing. It affects the confidence in the US dollar. The US dollar is already under pressure this year. It has not been a great year for the dollar. It's already down 10% in the first 10 months of the year. That's huge for a currency that's supposed to be safe, secure, and stable. A prolonged shutdown only adds fuel to the fire because it makes investors in countries around the world wonder if America can manage its own finances. Remember, the only reason our living standards are so great is because countries around the world have adopted to allowing us to be the reserve currency. It has provided us a very low borrowing cost and tons of other opportunities. Other countries buy it, trade it, and hold it. That demand props up our lifestyle. But if faith in the U.S. starts to crack, if investors start to wonder if America can even keep their government open, they may make the logical decision and question whether they should keep all of their money here. They may start to move some of their money around and take a little risk off the table in America. We saw hints of this in past shutdowns. In 2018 and 2019, the dollar slipped as investors around the world waited for Washington to get their act together. Now add in today's problems. Massive federal debt, rising interest payments, and the Fed that's already cutting interest rates.
Federal Reserve announcing its decision on whether to make its first interest rate cut this year. And central bank has just voted to cut interest rates by a 1/4 percentage point.
Put a shutdown on top of all of that, makes the dollar look a little bit riskier. And here's the scary part. When the dollar falls, it's not just some chart on Wall Street. It means imports cost more. Global commodities like oil and food get more expensive. And inflation can flare back up again. In other words, if confidence in America slips, we're all going to feel it at the gas pump. We're going to feel it at the grocery store. That's why this isn't just about politics in Washington, D.C. The longer the shutdown lasts, the more risk we have of undermining what keeps our lifestyles so great here in America, the U.S. dollar. So what's the real cost of this shutdown? Economists estimate that we're losing between $7 and $15 billion a week.
The U.S. economy could lose $15 billion of gross domestic product each week. Every single week.
That's money lost from businesses, families, and local economies. And the longer it goes on, the more damage becomes permanent. The last time this happened in 2018 and 2019, the U.S. lost $3 billion permanently, never got any of it back. This time, with higher debt and a weaker job market, and a dollar that's already sliding, the stakes are much higher. The shutdown might seem like politics in Washington, but it's not. It's your paycheck, your mortgage, your grocery bill, and the purchasing power of the money in your wallet. And the real question isn't how long Congress can stay locked in its fight. It's how long the American people can survive inside of this government shutdown. How do you see all this shaking out, and how long do you think this government shutdown will last? Do you think this is going to end in October, or do you think this...
Lord willing, the Lord doesn't take his foot off the gas pedal with this thing. All right. But like I said, man, there's a lot to be said, a lot to break down, a lot of meat to digest. But these are just, important points dealing with a government shutdown. Again, man, it's just making a slow death quicker, because America is pretty much on hospice, man. All right, she's on her way out. I'm gonna go to this second 15 and 11, but I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm and smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all the land thereof. All right, because one of the plagues that Yahweh Bashem Shai brought on ancient Egypt was a collapse of the economy. All right, and he's doing it all over again. America being spiritual Egypt. It says, Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment that the Heavenly Father shall bring upon it. They that till the ground shall mourn, for their seed shall fail through the blasting and hail and with a fearful constellation, and all these things are happening. All right, from the signs in the heavens. All right, the Shemayim. All right, and so on and so forth, man. America's crumbling from within. All right, I'm gonna jump down. Because all in all, man, one thing is going to lead to another. All right. And this is just the details on a much broader scale of things. All right. This is, we're seeing the details play out. Like I said, man, it's going to be rather interesting, man. And this is not a coincidence. The government shut down on the Day of Atonement. So, Yahweh Bashem Shai Ratazah. Again, he doesn't take his foot off the gas pedal. And I know Day of Atonement brothers will put curse up on this bitch. I'm gonna jump down. Actually, Egypt is mourning. These Egyptians, man, they are feeling the squeeze. Oh, Slakia, second edge of 16. Second edge of 16. And verse 21. Behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case, and even then shall evils grow upon the earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. Like it says in Isaiah 47, Babylon sitting in the dust. All right, the virgin daughter of Babylon sitting in the dust, that confusion. It says, for many of them that dwell upon the earth shall perish of famine. This is, again, one thing is going to lead to another. Hyperinflation. All right, because, more and more, as it's been reported on, more and more of America's allies are doing away with America, doing away with the dollar. All right, dumping their bonds and things of that nature, man. Again, man, one thing is going to lead to another, man, and pretty soon these people there are going to be at each other's throats. All right, and we're already seeing this, man. These Babylonians, they are feeling the squeeze, they are feeling the hurt. And Kahalam Yahweh Bashim Al Shah, we don't feel bad for these people. We love to see it. It says, for many of them that dwell upon the earth shall perish of famine, and the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy. So, like I said, this is not a full-blown economy collapse, but nevertheless, this is a more fuel to the fire. It's going to make a slow death much quicker, a quick death much quicker. All right, Ecclesiastes 12. And 2, while the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain, and the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened. And this is what we're seeing. Again, these economists, all they can do is tell you to buy guns, ammo, gold, silver, get into the cryptocurrency and all these other things, but none of this is going to save you. There is no escaping what's to come unless you are under the banner of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. It says, and the door shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. So you see, man. All right, pretty soon, man, Lord willing, sooner than soon, there's not going to be no more waking up to these bullshit 9 to 5. There's not going to be no waking up to these bullshit alarm clocks for these bullshit 9 to 5 jobs. All right, more and more, again, jobs will be done away with. Here it is. They try to lie. They straight up lie and talk about the job reports and how they're bringing back jobs to America, but they don't put it out there that these jobs, basically, in not so many words, man, hey, people are picking up multiple gigs, man, because hey, it's already tough as it is, but people are on pure survival mode. They don't tell you that part. Hell, Biden and Trump, they were doing it about, hey, they're bragging about all the jobs that they're bringing back to the market and all things of that nature. And they don't tell you that, again, these are just people that are already working 1 or 2 jobs, picking up extra jobs and things of that nature, man. Because, hey, it's hard out here for a pimp, So, again, dealing with a government shutdown, which I believe is strategic. All right, Trump shutting down basically these government programs, federal funding and things of that nature, so he can use those funds. He can use those funds for his purpose. Because again, we're getting ready to. Babylon's getting ready to go to war. All right, and I believe, just speaking as a man, Trump wants to use those. He wants to redirect those funds for war. All right, wartime. All right, and things of that nature. That's just my hypothesis. All right, but again, dealing with a government shutdown, it's not a full-blown economy collapse, but nevertheless, it is leading to one. All right, so it's just more fuel to the fire. But Lord willing, this was edifying, giving all praises to Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. Shalom to you, hopefully elect.